Welcome. I'm Hector Haines. I'm going to be talking a little bit about skyrunning today. As you perhaps all know, you've been following along on the SportsShoes.com Instagram feed, and that's where we are here. I have been taking over it now for the last few minutes, so welcome if you've just joined. I'm going to be answering some questions. I'm going to be talking through a little bit about some flexibility, some mobility exercises maybe that you might find of use, hopefully. I'm also going to be answering all your questions. So if you've got any questions, post them in the chat here. All the questions that you have will be thrown into a lottery, into a draw. You can win a pair of shoes. So please, ask me any questions here in the chat. Also, you can post them afterwards. Post your best skyrunning stories or your best trail running stories or just your best running stories. And if you post them into the comments, into the IGTV, into the feed, then you will also be in with a chance to win this pair of Merrell shoes. It's the Merrell Long Sky shoes. They're the shoes which have the Vibram sole, of course. Super comfortable, straight out the box, I have to admit. I've been using them a lot for my training recently. Very good grip, very comfortable, very durable. They're not the super lightweight. They're not as lightweight as they possibly could be, but they're designed for ultra running. So pretty good all the same. So you can win yourself a pair of those shoes. Make sure you comment here or ask a question. Do that. Okay, I'm going to start with some questions that I had previously that were given to me by you guys or by others who sent me messages personally. So I'll just go through them a little bit here, and we'll kick the things off a bit like that. So, what race would you recommend for anyone wanting to start skyrunning? And I had a few like this. For instance, Thomas Hendricks, he said, what small steps or races that you recommend to do before starting with longer sky races? So, and Bad Bixer, another comment here, if you want to start out with skyrunning, how important is the right equipment compared to, say, running, and where should you start to invest your bucks if you're on a budget? And a follow-up question, how do you typically plan for a skyrun race? Like how far in advance do you start your training and preparation? And also, a final question in the same kind of area here. What fitness level should you have, or what trail distance should you be able to cover before you start skyrunning? Well, all these questions are great. And it's a good place to start, isn't it? Like, how do you start skyrunning? Well, I'm going to assume that most of you know what skyrunning is and have a little bit of an idea of what it is. If you don't, of course, I would recommend going and having a look online, checking out some incredible YouTube videos that Skyrunning Federation have got on their YouTube channel. That you can just find them, type skyrunning into YouTube, type it into Google, whichever browser you want to use, you'll find a lot of skyrunning footage, and it's incredible. So, skyrunning. What would I recommend? What race or what would I recommend people to start skyrunning? I would recommend, firstly, get a good pair of shoes or shoes that are comfortable. Now, comfort when running is king, for me at least. Comfort is king. You know, when you're more experienced, maybe you want to define it, you refine it, you want to have some like lighter weight and this sort of thing. But to begin with, I would say comfort is king. You know, you don't want to be getting blisters. You don't want to be getting any like other problems. You don't want to be, feeling uncomfortable, basically. You want that feeling of just comfort and flying. So get a good pair of shoes, get some good kit, that it's comfy, it's not chafing, etc. So do all that. Then I would say, but don't spend you don't need to spend too much money, just a decent pair of shoes that's as much as I would recommend. So do that. Running then on trails, super important. So get off the road if you can. Find some trails. Go exploring. Like exploring is an incredible part, and it's such a great thing that skyrunning has given me, to visit all these different places around the world, around Europe even. You discover that there's such a depth and crazy such such variance, such variability in the terrain that even Europe has to offer. So, and even within your own country, I'm sure there's places that you have never visited and you had no idea that they existed. So get off trail, get to new places, just see stuff, you know, and get that excitement. Once you've got that excitement, then that's the motivation that you want to take forward. The motivation then you can use to, just take those small steps towards. So, you know, you maybe make your runs a bit longer, or you make them a bit more technical. You know, you go from a big trail to a small trail to a single track to maybe a little bit off trail. Okay, so do all these little things and just keep exploring. You know, you don't need to push yourself too much, but push yourself a little bit out your comfort zone if you feel like it each time. Get more and more comfortable. And then I would say skyrunning, pick a sky race that's not too long for your first sky race and not too technical. That being said, there are some really nice sky races that I would recommend. I think two that spring to mind are in Italy, northern Italy. So firstly, Dolomites Sky Race, a very popular one, and Limone Sky Race. So Dolomites happens in the summer, usually middle of the summer in July. Really nice in the middle of the Dolomites. Starts and finishes at Canazei, small Italian town, village in the mountains. It's just got one big up all the way to the top of Pisboa. That's 3,000 meters above in altitude at the top, and then you drop all the way down. Quite technical descent, but not too bad. And it's just an up and down. It's very short, relatively. Of course, it takes a few hours for the winners still. But yeah, that's a good one. And Limone happens at the end of the year. That's always one of the most highly anticipated races of the whole year. That's super exciting. Again, similar in profile. It has one big uphill in the beginning, actually just a few kilometers running, and then the uphill. Then it has a bit of undulation, some really technical downhill, some small single track. But again, it's shorter. It's not so extreme as some of the bigger ones. So I would recommend those to start with. So, and I would say, you know, to do a sky race or to finish a sky race, your level of fitness doesn't have to be supreme, you know. It just has to be good enough, and a lot of the time it's just a mental battle to finish these races because they're so epic in nature. And if you've got the confidence in your body, and you've got the confidence in your, you know, how you can run on trails when you're a bit tired and this sort of thing, then the actual level of fitness is not super important, you know. And you can take poles and you can walk sections. You don't have to run the whole thing, you know. So, and in fact, I don't think there's any sky race that I've run every step. So yeah, that is one thing that I would say. I think in every sky race I've competed in, I've had to walk in some point because, yeah, either it's been so long and I'm so tired, or there's been such a steep section that it's impossible to run anyway. Okay, I'm going to start now with a bit of flexibility. Thank you to everyone who's joining and watching still. Thanks for the questions that keep popping up. I'm going to try and pin them and get around to you later. Flexibility then. Of course I'm ready. I'm ready for this session, even though I've been at work. So I've got my Merrell t-shirt on. Got the Merrell stuff. All right, we're going to go over here for this. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to give you a little bit of advice. Maybe you've been sat at your desk at work, a bit hunched up or a bit crunched, or you've been sat, you know, in your kitchen, working from home with your laptop over the last few months. Maybe you're feeling a little bit in tight back, or a little bit of knee pain, or some hip problems. Okay, so we'll go through a few exercises just now. So these exercises then. The first one I'd like to do is just show like how to loosen off your lower back. So if you're just coming down like this, and then just side to side, easy stuff on the side to side. And you can do about 20 of those, just like until it feels good, nice and loose, okay? Okay, after that, I like to take one leg over to the side and just bring it down, and then, oh, I felt my back click already there, but you can also just squeeze out there. And this allows the lower back here to rotate and just ease off any tension. So you do that, you can do it like 5 times on each, just stretch it out there, and maybe your shoulder is clicking, perhaps. Okay, so that's that second one. Third one then, for the back again. Take the knees up and just squeeze. That's also a really great one, just to ease up the lower back. And of course you can do like, you know, extensions and all sorts. Okay, moving into the hips, sometimes what you can get, if you've been working at a desk for a long time or sitting on a chair that you're not used to, you can get like a misalignment of the hips, and this is quite common in running. So like, you know, one hip is sitting higher than the other, and maybe you're getting some twist in the hips. So these exercises can really help with that. So I'm just going to pin this question so we can get back to it. Pin that one. Very good. Thank you very much for that. Okay, the hips. Right. So this is a great one that will help with the balance of your hips, so that, you know, how you run. And I learned this one fairly recently, actually. So you take one knee and you're pulling it. So you're pulling it, and then with this hand you're pushing that one. So push and pull, and you maybe have like 5 seconds, and then you swap, push and pull, and push and pull. Okay. So that's really good for that. Also, we'll go again. We're lying down on the back, and you're just rotating through like this. Okay. And obviously both sides you can do. And then also this way, you can do like this. And this is really good as well for the lower back and the hips. So so that's really good. So those are just a couple of the exercises, a few of the exercises that I do every day to try and keep myself subtle, nimble. Just keep things like rolling on. You know, you don't want to spend like hours and hours doing all of this stuff. Just focus on the things that you feel are important for you at that time. And my top recommendation would be to, if you've got some sort of niggle or injury, you don't know what it is, you know, you can have a quick look online or go to your physio or chiropractor or whoever, like someone that you trust and someone that you know has good knowledge, but look it up, like do a lot of research. And half of the problem with any injuries or any niggles that you have is the diagnosis. And once you have the diagnosis, you know, the rest of the problem is just solving it. So that's a good recommendation that I have for everybody. Okay, so that's the flexibility. We'll go into a few questions now. So I've got a few here that I've pinned. Thank you, Set Foot with Kevin. I'll just read this here. Downhill is the fun part. Some say disengage the brain. I think heavy focus is better. What's your way? All right, top downhill tip. Number 1 is fast feet. Fast feet going downhill will really help you. Okay, so just when you're training downhill, just think fast feet, fast feet, fast feet. Okay, this not only helps when you're just running like a smooth. Okay, so a smooth, gradual downhill, you just run normally, right? We're talking about steep descents, rocky, technical, skyrunning descents. Fast feet, fast feet, fast feet, okay? Because when you're doing that, you're dancing, basically just dancing through the rocks and this sort of thing. And in a way, you are disengaging the brain, but it's about just thinking, okay, I need to move my feet fast, and then the brain will automatically, it will pick out the right rock to step on, to move, and you know, each step is not like super important that you get the right landing. If you get a slightly off landing or something else, you just quickly, you're on to the next foot. So fast feet for me is a number one. And I think, yeah, I mean, practicing downhill, of course, is very important, and you should do that as much as possible. But yeah, fast feet, that's one for me. Okay. And also, Set Foot with Kevin asks, when it gets tough, what mantra or motivation do you draw on that kicks in your focus again? Okay, well, great question, this. I think for me, I know myself quite well. I know my body quite well. I know my mind quite well. And for me, I start to talk to myself actually in third person. Strangely, I would say, I ask myself, I'm starting to get tired. I may be stumbling, and I'm losing the focus, and I've forgotten what my race strategy was. And I say, come on, Haines, come on, man, sort yourself out. Like, get to this next bit, okay? And I just think about, and it really is, at the end of the day, just thinking about the next bit, and then the next bit, and then the next bit. And when you're really tired, it's so much easier to focus on the next bit. This also ties into the strategy of the race. In the strategy of the race, I often am breaking down each race into sections, like segments. And I'll break down first into 3, and then maybe into smaller segments from that as well. Just to make it easy. And I mean, the reason I use 3, of course, is because 3 is easy to remember, right? And it's like, okay, this point, this point, this point. And it doesn't have to be into thirds exactly, but it can be like, okay, the beginning, the middle, and the end sort of thing. And those are the sections which you assign different sort of strategies towards. So, typically in the beginning, you're holding yourself back and you're making sure, okay, I'm not going too much into the red. I'm not pushing too hard. I'm keeping myself, available to push when the going really matters, right? And then the middle is like, okay, this section, I'm really going to be racing. And this is my racing section. I'm pushing hard, I'm pushing hard, I'm pushing hard. And then the end section, okay, that's just about damage limitation. I'm hanging on, how much can I hang on for, basically, is what I put down to the end section. I'm expecting to be tired, of course you're going to be tired, you're at the end of a big race. So what are you going to be doing at that point? You're just going to be hanging on. How are you going to be hanging on? You're going to focus on your feet, where you're putting your feet. You're going to be focusing on, keeping enough fluids if you're going that long into the race, and this sort of thing. So, just making it to the finish line and doing all the right things for that. So, great questions. Thank you. I'm just going to scroll back a little bit. Okay. LB 2020 has a question here. What is your most brutal skyrunning experience? What happened and what did you learn? Thanks. Okay, brutal. Brutal skyrunning. I mean, the both of them are basically the same thing. It's most sky races are brutal. There's no getting around it. If you're pushing yourself in the mountains there on the courses that have been designed by, often exceptional skyrunners in themselves, you're gonna get brutalized. What is the most brutal one that I've ever done? I think it has to be probably something like Gran Paradiso, which is a super long one in the Gran Paradiso National Park in Italy, northern Italy, in the Alps there. Super beautiful, but yeah, it was brutal. I mean, I was struggling a little bit with a knee injury going into it, and after 30 kilometers, it was very, very painful. I still had another 30 kilometers or so to run, a lot of climbing to do, a lot of downhill to do, which was especially painful on the knee. And I was just really suffering, and I was like, okay, I get through to the next aid point, and I had a support team out there, and I was like, okay, we'd decided, the strategy, the support team would be at this one aid point. Got to that aid point, no support team. Oh my goodness. Mentally, I was like almost ready to cry. I was ready to break down. I was ready to almost quit. But I didn't. I just stopped at the aid point. I was like, okay, is this worth it? And you just got to ask yourself, is it worth it? And for me, it was worth it. Is the brutalization worth it? It's always worth it. You learn so much about yourself. And I just pushed through, got to the next aid point, and my support team was there. Great boost from the next aid point all the way to the finish. And in the end, it wasn't quite as brutal as it was in the middle of it. But but it was pretty brutal. Other than that, I think my first ever sky race when my first ever ultra sky race, when I raced in Trans Gran Canaria, that was pretty brutal just because it was so long, and mentally I was really done at the end just from pushing myself for so long. So thank you for those questions. We've got a few more questions that I had was given earlier, so we can talk a little bit about those, and hopefully I can keep your excitement here. So what is your favorite race you've ever competed in and why? And also another one from 𝐸𝐻𝐻 𝐸𝐻𝐻. What is the nicest run you've ever done? And another question here, what is your favorite area country for skyrunning? So all these three kind of similar. My favorite ever race, I think I have to say, it's a good one. I mean, like each race, each sky race is different. Of course, it has different characters in the different places, different length, different mountains, different climb, different descent, different profiles. All of this thing goes into the character of the race. And really, I rate races on their character. How much atmosphere is there? What mountains, which mountains do you run over? What are the character of the mountains and this sort of thing? So one of the favorite races I've ever competed in, actually, is Transvolcania, and that's on the Isle of La Palma in the Canary Islands. And the Canary Islands are quite special to me. I've been there a lot, raced there a lot as well, and been on many training camps. Warm weather training camps is a great warm weather destination during the winter, the cold winter months, especially now that I'm living in Sweden. The cold and dark of Sweden gets to you. So yeah, traveling to Gran Canaria and traveling to La Palma, incredible place. And just, I think, the bit about it that was so incredible is, it's dark, you start in the night, you start like 6 in the morning, or 6 in the morning, I think. Anyway, it's dark. You're starting at the southernmost point of the island. It's a lighthouse next to the sea. You have to wear a head torch. Everyone's wearing a head torch. You run out through the lava fields. You're running up, and it's cold and it's dark. You're running up through the mountains, and then the trees are coming. You're running through the trees, and there's this mist, this cold mist that is like formed in the tree line overnight. So you're running up through these misty trees with your head torch, and then you can feel like, okay, the sun is coming, and the light is coming through the trees and through the mist. And suddenly you're breaking out of the trees, and you're on the top, and you're on the lava fields and the volcanic section on the top, and you're just rolling through the top, and there's this huge cloud inversion. And what I mean by that is, of course, the cloud is laying in the bottom, and you're over the cloud, and you're in the bright sunshine, and that is just incredible. When the sun is out, and you're at the top, and you can see for miles, and all the other little Canary Islands there in the archipelago are all peeking out the top. Incredible, right? Great views. I mean, that goes to be probably my favorite, nicest run, favorite area. Yeah, it can be all of those. That being said, of course, Northern Italy, real favorite as well. Got some incredible races there. You can list 100 different races there that are equally incredible as each other. Very challenging, different vibes, different dynamics to just the people. That the people that put on the races, they're so passionate and they love their races. And so if you get to know the organizers, or even if you just have any interaction with the volunteers and the people out on the course, the people cheering you on, people say 𝐬𝐫 is 𝐬𝐫 because generally, like, 𝐬𝐫 is incredible for the people. The people and the course and everything come together. and it just creates this awesome experience that you'll never forget, and it's one of the best experiences you'll ever have out in the mountains. What is my longest race? Well, I alluded to it. That was, of course, the Trans Gran Canaria, way back in, what was that, 2017. So yeah, that was my longest. Not done anything longer since, thankfully, but I did do 5 ultra distance races in 2017, and yes, I'm going to come back to the distance soon, I guess, and we'll see how long I go into the future. But certainly, I'll probably top that, looking into the future on some of the races I want to complete. Okay, Phil Coombs, he asks, is there a limit to how high you should run? What is the highest terrain you've ever run on? And also Peter Hodkinson asks, how do you prepare for races that reach high altitude? All right, let's talk a little bit about altitude. So a lot of sky races do go to altitude. And what I mean by altitude, well, typically 2,000 meters, that's about the point where most people start to really feel altitude. Now, I'm one of the people, in fact, that actually don't really feel so much at 2,000 meters. Somehow my body has adapted, and generally running and pushing hard at 2,000 doesn't feel like an issue. However, when I get to 3,000, or probably around 3,000, then I'm really starting to feel it, and I'm sure everyone else is pretty much as well. So for these races, it's not often that you're there in that altitude for so long. There are a few races that go all the way up to 4,000, and I think the highest sky race on the series, at least, is the 𝐤𝐴DING Sky Race that goes to about 4,500 above sea level. So that is just incredible. I've never done it, but I've heard that it's absolutely brutal when you're at that altitude and trying to push. I would say for me, physiologically, I know that okay, what feeling altitude is going to give me when I'm pushing. So you can monitor that. You're going to feel bad. You're pushing, there's not enough oxygen, and your body starts to react. So for me, I know I get a headache in the back of my head. I'm breathing in low oxygen, and I'm pushing really hard, and I'm getting a small headache, like maybe a little migraine. But I know that that's just going to go away. That's no problem. You also, you're feeling short of breath, and everything starts to feel heavy. Your legs are feeling heavy. But again, like for a short period of time, if you're up there in altitude and you're pushing, you know that it's only going to last a short time. You come down out of altitude, and generally you'll feel a lot better. So, do I do altitude training, and do I have an altitude tent? No. Generally, I try to, my lifestyle is such that I'm living at sea level right now, living at sea level more or less, and my options for going to altitude are fairly limited. That being said, I know myself that actually my body doesn't actually adapt super well in altitude. So my best strategy has been, over the years, to just turn up to a race that is happening at altitude and just have, say, a few days there, very few days, 2 days, 3 days max before the race. Then I go and compete at altitude, and generally, your body doesn't have time to adapt too much or get too tired because of the altitude then. The other option is, of course, you go to altitude and you go there for like a few weeks beforehand so your body can acclimatize. But often that is not feasible. So that's what I would say about altitude. What other questions have I here? Okay, what preparation goes into your training to make your long runs as safe as possible? And Simply Lulu also asks, how do I best prepare and train for sky races? So in terms of the preparation for these races, I would say the key preparation that I like to make is just looking at the course profile, okay? Looking at how much climb there is, where you go on the course, what the different sections are, how technical it is, this sort of thing. From that, I make a strategy, okay? And the strategy is based around, okay, where are the steep sections, where are the descents, where can I recover, where are the aid points? Okay, all these things figure into the strategy. Once I have the strategy set, then it's like, okay, mentally, everything becomes a lot easier. I've broken the race down into sections, as I talked about earlier. And yeah, that is the preparation that I like to do. Then of course that's the mental preparation. There's of course technical, physical preparation that I like to do as well. Technical preparation, well, that just includes looking at the course profile again, looking at the technical sections. Okay, is it going to be a rocky technical section? Is there going to be some snow? Is it going to be like a technical descent through a forest and I need to practice running on like the rooty forest trails? I'm just doing a bit of that to practice, okay? Just like the fast feet, etc., jumping across rocks, climbing up rocks, scrambling, and this sort of thing, if I need to. So that's sort of preparation. Then the physical preparation, of course, well, I'm just doing the physical training week in, week out, year in, year out, that I know works for me. So that's my number one tip to you if you want to do a lot of like, you know, training and racing and get the most out of yourself. Find the training that works for you, okay? Running miles on roads could work for some people. For me, my training that works best for me is the 2 sessions that I like to include are hill reps, long, hard hill reps, and long runs, like long runs at pace. So not just like easy pace, just on that limit, that aerobic limit where conversation becomes a little bit difficult. And doing long runs at that pace and doing a lot of hill reps, a lot of strength, endurance, that's what works best for me. And then I'm in top shape. So apart from that, I would say variety is key. So keep a lot of variety. Don't just do the 2 things that you feel work best for you. Do a lot of variety. So I'm also doing a lot of variety. I'm also including a lot of cycling and skiing and other such things as well. Okay, I'm going to take a little break and talk about my kit bag. So in the kit bag, generally, of course, I've got all the mandatory kit that is required for any given race. So that could include head torches as well as just rain jackets and warm gear and obviously enough food. But the kit that I love to have and what I try to have is the lightest kit, you know, the lightest, the fastest kit. And that's my philosophy on racing, is fast and light. So yeah, I generally base my kit around that principle. So I'm often running in lightweight shoes. That being said, comfort is king, but lightweight shoes, lightweight gear, you know, just if I can, I'm running in just a vest and a pair of shorts, and this sort of thing. However, look at the race conditions, you see what you need. Obviously, if it's going to get cold or wet, or it is cold and wet, then I'll look at to wearing like, you know, thin pair of tights, or just maybe you know, you start with arm warmers. And I know a lot of people probably will say, you know, arm warmers, who's using arm warmers? But I've never really used them. I've often never felt the need, but I can see the appeal on a race where it starts cold. For instance, in Transvolcania, you'll start cold, it's during the night, and then it gets hot, and you just quickly want to take off something that was keeping your arms a bit warmer. For a long race, I think that, again, like I said before, comfort is king. So if this is going to keep you comfortable, then I can see the appeal, and I don't judge anyone for wearing arm warmers particularly, although I do sometimes. But no, generally, I'm just joking. Arm warmers are fine. I don't take poles, generally, although I have raced a couple of times with poles on very steep vertical races, of course. So, yeah, that is also in my kit bag if I feel like I need it. That's it, really. Yeah, I race most races now in the Merrell Skyfire. That's a new Skyrunning shoe that they developed for the racing. It's a little bit more lightweight than the Long Sky, and it's more stripped down, but it's still got a lot of comfort, and the grip is superb. And yeah, it's a good shoe. Very yeah, pretty lightweight, I'd say. Not the lightest weight shoe on the market, but it's still great. And yeah, good ventilation, all the rest. So that is my kit bag. Okay, a few more questions here then before we wrap up. Remember, if you've got a question, throw it in the chat here, get a conversation going, and I'll try and get around to it. Also, if you're just tuning in and watching this, you can throw a comment on the video afterwards, after it's been uploaded onto IGTV. Throw a comment on there about your best ever skyrunning experience, or your best ever trail experience, or your best ever running experience, and you will be in with a chance to win a pair of Merrell shoes. So that's something to look forward to. Definitely, those will be picked next Monday, Monday the 8th, I believe. So you've got until that time. All right. So, what has skyrunning taught you about yourself that road running hasn't? Well, this is a very good question, and I like it a lot. What has skyrunning taught me about myself that road running hasn't? Well, road running, I would say, in general, is very attritional. So, you know, it's you start off and the group goes ahead, and it's basically, can you hang the pace? 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 And as the race gets longer, people are dropping off, and generally there is that kind of feeling to it, very attritional race. And the one who wins that battle of attrition will most likely go on to win the race. In terms of a long road race, this is, of course, there is some more strategy in shorter road races. But anyway, and skyrunning has taught me that it's more about me and the course. So it's myself against the course, against others. So it's added another dimension, and it's taught me how I can be the best against a given course, against a given profile, against a given terrain type. So, for instance, you know, in Scotland, for the 𝐶𝐿𝐭𝐲 skyline, for instance, you know, that type of terrain teaches you, and it certainly taught me, is like, okay, how can I run strong after so long, and you have to descend through a marsh. And because, of course, in Scotland, the marshes go up and down the hills. They're not just flat things like we get here in Sweden quite a lot. No, marshes go uphill in Scotland, and you have to often go up and down them. So that, you know, how do you stay strong, right? So it's like, there's a lot of things that Skyrunning's taught me. Mentally, it's taught me a lot, you know, just how to suffer, like, suffering, right? Let's just go on a little bit about suffering, like how to suffer. I think you learn how to suffer definitely in a sky race. In a way, you know, once you get to the line, once you get to the line and you finish the race and you've suffered for a long period of time, physically and perhaps mentally, you realize it's such a relief. You know, it's such a relief, and you realize, like, okay, these are my limits. These are my new limits. And yeah, I mean, discovering the new limits, that's definitely something that Skyrunning has taught me. So discovering new limits, I guess I would have to say for that. Okay, do I have any superstitions or things that I have to do? Well, no, I don't actually. I'm a very logical person. I'm an engineer by trade. I work as a structural engineer day to day. I'm very logically minded, and I don't have any superstitions at all, really. It's a very easy thing to do, though, and I do know a lot of athletes that have superstitions, and I don't judge them for it. Just to me, it's illogical. It's an extra stress I have to worry about. And one of the things I know from racing is that if things are going to go wrong, they might go wrong. So it's better to just prepare for things that might go wrong. Have some flexibility in your plan. You know, if your bag gets delayed or gets lost on your way to a sky race, you know, what do? And your lucky charm is in the bag. It's an absolute disaster, isn't it? So it's better not to have superstitions on for my part. I did actually lose a bag last year at the European Sky Champs and had to borrow a little bit of kit off a friend, but luckily I had all the rest of my kit in my hand luggage. I guess not luckily, but you know, you plan for that. So yeah, these sort of things, if things go wrong, you got to have the flexibility. If you can't have your specific ritual or whatever, or you're too late to do your exact warm-up, and that's a superstition that you have, then you know. So for me, I stay chilled, calm, no superstition. Okay, a couple of questions on multi-day races now. So what is your strategy for nutrition intake during multi-day races, and how do you rest and recover between legs during multi-day races? Well, my number one tip for multi-day races is do not just consider multi-day races as being the races each day. You've got to consider that multi-day races are also a lot about the recovery in between and the points in between the race. So, for instance, just let's take an example. A 2-day race over a weekend is not, in fact, 2 competitions, one day after another. It's 3, because the third competition, of course, lies in the middle. And that competition is who can recover the best after day 1 ahead of day 2. So view each of your multi-day races as being a series of mini competitions, both in terms of the physical aspect and the mental aspect of pushing your body, but also the aspect of recovery in between. And I would say the best thing to do to recover is when you've run a race, put your feet up, get enough electrolytes, get enough carbohydrates, a little bit of protein, obviously, as well, but it's mostly the carbohydrates, the electrolytes, a little bit of protein, and then sleep. And allowing your body to sleep as much as it wants, and this sort of thing. Be flexible about your nutrition, but obviously make sure you're getting the right stuff. And multi-day races, like really long multi-day races, you're going to want enough fruit, enough vegetables, enough vitamins and minerals to get you through a whole week of races, for instance. So that can be logistically difficult, so try and think about how you're going to do that as well. Okay, Natasha Key asks a basic question. Is the route marked? Yes, the route is always marked, and I've never gone wrong. Fingers crossed that'll never happen to me. Yeah, generally, organisation for sky races is incredible, and the route is always marked. Lots of marshals, lots of volunteers, lots of people just out on the course cheering. And in general, I don't think I've heard of many people going wrong on sky races, so that's pretty good. Okay, next question. Do I prefer ascent or descent? Well, I think I probably prefer ascent, although descent is also great for me. I think I can hold my own with some of the best. Of course, people like Kilian. We'll just drop his name in here. He is, of course, a fantastic descender, and I can't keep up with Kilian on the downhill. But my strengths are... yeah, ascending, probably. One of my strengths, relatively, is ascending. I think descending, you need to practice a lot, and I would say I have practiced a lot in the past, but most recently, when I'm living at sea level, it's very difficult to get enough descent practice in. That being said, I've recently moved to Åre in Sweden, and they have a big mountain at the back of where I am just now. So hopefully I can practice a lot more descent and get better and improve a lot more again. So, final few questions now before we end the stream. If you've got any, keep posting them and I'll try and get through them. But we're wrapping up now. Just a few more questions. So, Sophia Sarkozy, she has asked me, do I have any posters of myself that can be purchased anywhere? No, I don't. Sorry for that. If there's really a great outcry for posters of my face, I think the world is in a strange place, but never mind. Yeah, we'll move through that one. Okay, right, last couple of questions here just relating to Merrell. So I will talk a little bit about these. So what does nature mean to you and Merrell? And this is from Pedrolas Palmas. So what does nature mean? Well, nature to me, and in fact to Merrell as well, as I think about it, it just means basically anything. It means getting out your door. It means connecting with things in the natural world, you know. So you just in your commute to work, for instance, think about that, or think about, you know, going from your house to the shops, perhaps. What sort of nature do you have on the way? You know, you're walking down the street, maybe there's concrete, there's tarmac, etc., but probably a tree. And nature, to me, is like understanding, okay, there's a tree, and being mindful of this. And of course, a lot of places that you go skyrunning, nature is everywhere, literally everywhere, and you're in it, you're right in it. And but nature and nature for Merrell is all about just connecting with the smaller bits of nature as well. And everyone has a chance to be in nature, I think, if you can define it that way. So it's really about that connection with nature and connecting with the smaller bits of nature and being mindful of the smaller bits of nature and appreciating those. You know, when you see a tree in blossom in the spring in your local town, your local city, or even in your back garden, you know, just appreciate the fact that you have nature close by and wonder at the incredible, you know, diversity and incredible, like, way that the dynamics of nature play into one another and that we are a part of nature. It's really incredible. All right, and finally, Alex Uthri, he asks, what are your favorite Merrell shoes? Well, I've talked a little bit about the shoes that I wear. Of course, the Skyrunning shoes, both pairs, the Long Sky and the Skyfire, are great shoes, super comfortable out of the box. I would say those are obviously my favorites. On top of that, Merrell do a great line in casual shoes. I've got a pair of casual shoes with Merrell. They look great as well, and they're super comfortable, so they're fun for wearing around. I also have a pair of shoes that I wear around the office. I could just get those for you here. So these are my office shoes. Again, super comfortable. They're in a little brown leather suede. It's it goes well, you know, goes well with blue chinos around the office and a shirt, stripy shirt. So yeah, no, they're great, and they're just they're like slippers. Honestly, they're so comfortable. They're just like slippers. So I love those. Also, they do a great line in barefoot shoes. And if you love barefoot shoes and you love the Vibram shoes and the Vibram soles, they've got loads of those. Essentially, I would say Merrell shoes, something for everyone, because there's thousands, literally thousands of different types. So you can go to their website and choose between, many. And of course, the sports shoes will have many options as well for you. So yeah, I would just say those. The 𝐸𝐴 glove is a really good one. The 𝐸𝐴 Trail glove, I think it's called, a barefoot shoe that I've used before and I find really good. Okay, any final questions then before I leave you all? What is skyrunning? Yes, I hope I've covered that. I just scroll through a little more to find if there's any final questions. I think it's everything. Thank you everyone for joining and having a little watch. And thanks to everyone who perhaps has watched all the way through. I can't believe that anyone might have done that. But if you have, well done to you. Thanks again. Remember, comment on the IGTV to get a pair of shoes. Yes, it's a competition, so only one winner, I believe. But yeah, the best will win. So thank you very much for joining me and listening to everything I had to say about skyrunning. I hope it's been useful. I hope some of the exercises I showed came out well enough, and I hope that you learned something. In the meantime, stay safe. Keep following Sports Shoes on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram. You can also find me on Strava for all my training and my races. They get put up there. You can also find me on Twitter, although I'm not so active, but Instagram is great. I do a lot of stuff on Instagram. Follow Sports Shoes on Instagram. Stay safe. I hope you've been enjoying the No Fun Standing Still at Home series. Keep tuning in for those. There's another one Friday, I believe, and that's going to be super fun. So yeah, do all that. I'll see you around on the trails, hopefully sometime soon. But in the meantime, stay safe. Goodbye.